Today in the show, Jeremiah from Laughing Place returns for our report on D23, the ultimate Disney fan event, which took place this past weekend. Earlier this season, Jeremiah came on the podcast to discuss the D23 convention media event we both attended. At that media event, we were introduced to a lot of new information, and we had our thoughts on how it would all go down. Now we've experienced all 3 days of D23, and we can share our thoughts on what went right, what went wrong, and what went better or worse than we had anticipated. This episode was recorded in a hotel room just hours after the convention weekend ended. Although we were both tired and perhaps a bit loopy, I thought it was important to get our immediate thoughts, so that's what we recorded. I would like to note that this episode is all about the logistics and production of D23, the Ultimate Disney Fan Event. For info about news that came from the convention, be sure to tune into next week's House of Mouse Headlines, where Kyle and I will discuss it all. For now, here's the overall recap of D23, the Ultimate Disney Fan Event 2024.
Get ready for a special conversation about a Disney special event.
Alrighty, Jeremiah, welcome back to Disney Coast to Coast.
Thank you. It's been, it's been like?
I think it was March. We just wrapped up, literally, D23, the Ultimate Disney Fan Event, just wrapped up for 2024. And I wanted to have you back on because obviously we had a lot of thoughts, opinions, concerns, and hopes for this convention. And now we've experienced it, and so I think we should discuss.
Yeah.
Let's just start, and I just literally standing ovation to the transportation between the Anaheim Convention Center and the Honda Center, which I think was one of the biggest concerns everybody had. And I think it worked splendidly for me.
Friday night... just because we're all so frightened about being late.
Yes.
I was out there and I got to the Honda Center like an hour and 45 minutes early because I didn't take the official D23, the Ultimate Fan Event bus system. I took the Anaheim Resort Transit, which outside my hotel, there's a pickup. I walked out, stood there for 2 seconds. A bus pulled up. The bus driver may not have known exactly where she was going all times, but we were over there. One of the things about the art is it drops off over at the train station where the actual D23 drops off right in the front. So I walked a little bit, but no problem at all. And I talked to people that did take the D23. I talked to other people that took the art. Everybody was praising it, and I can remember that was one of our worries right off the bat.
I think that was everybody's worries. I have some friends that stayed right near the Honda Center instead of the convention center. They seemed very happy with that decision. I think either one is great depending on what your priorities are, and how if you're worried about late nights or whatever at the Honda Center, perhaps smarter to stay near there. But they had, as we said, the free shuttle service between the convention center and the Honda Center. I went for a 7 o'clock panel or show, whatever presentation. I left the convention center at 5, literally walked right on a bus, expecting there to be a huge line. Walked right on a bus. I think it was 15 to 20 minutes to get there. Got there. Security lines were short. Got inside. Bathroom lines were short. Food lines were reasonable, and you got there in enough time to enjoy it. The other nights I ended up driving. Free parking, which at the time of the press event, they didn't tell us the parking was free.
No, there were so many. It's still to come.
Yeah, a lot of still to come, and they were probably still trying to figure it out, but you could park there for free. So I did have some folks drive me back and forth the other 2 nights, but I mean, huge applause and praise, and every, the folks, the leads from D23 that I saw at the convention that were at that press event, I went over to and said, glorious job with this. It felt like they knew that had to work.
Yes.
Or it would just ruin so much.
The only thing, and I come from Florida, where I know if I'm leaving right after fireworks, the bus lines are going to be long.
Yes.
I swear all the Disney fans completely forgot that concept and were complaining when they walked out and had to wait in the line. I never heard it was a really long line.
I waited 15 minutes.
Yeah, since where I was positioned to exit, I walked right onto the bus. No problem at all. But I know that there were lines, but even then it was, like you said, 15 minutes. Some people were like, oh, it took forever. Well, if you're the last person out after fireworks, you're still waiting 45 minutes. So
yeah, so very successful in my opinion. Listen, is it going to be perfect? No, but I will say the buses were nice. In fact, I ran into Michael Vargo, the head of D23, and I said, nice job on the transpo. It worked out really beautifully. And he said, aren't the buses nice? Yes. So, that is something that they obviously put a lot of thought into. It just worked out, and I'm delighted by that. And we'll get into, whether or not we think the Honda Center should return or not in future years. It's going to, whether or not we think it should, but it's going to. But let's rewind a little bit and talk about the ticket purchasing process, because as we kind of predicted, we said, hey, it sounds like a lot of the frustration is going to be taken away from the actual event, but put on us before the event. And that was the case with the ticket buying process. The ticket buying process was very frustrating, sold out faster, way faster than ever before. The entire event was sold out in 3 days, something like that. And it was, it was virtual queue, which was frustrating. As you'll probably remember, I begged them to have the, notification of when it's your turn. That didn't happen. The site crashed. When you got in there, options were very limited. I don't know how many browsers you had open, but I got up to 60,000 in line. The lowest I ever got was 6,000. And when I finally got in to shop, none of the cheap seats were available. And by cheap, I mean $297 seats were available for the event. And so it did get to a point where I really thought I was just going to be doing convention center. Luckily, a savior of a friend got in and ended up buying tickets for a bunch of people. We paid him back sort of situation. And it worked out. But it was a nightmare.
Mm-hmm. I experienced the exact same thing. I had a friend overseas, and I think she said she had 30 windows open.
Jesus.
I got in, and I was sitting there, and I'm watching, and I'm watching, and I'm watching. And when it finally jumped me in, I don't remember where I was. I know I had screenshots of it where I was sharing with my friends. I'm like, there is not a chance that I'm getting in at this point. Thankfully, my friend, again, with the 30 browsers, was able to buy tickets. But there were so many frustrations that were very vocalized by everybody. The if you didn't know to log in first, which, again, I think that's kind of a common thing that you should do. But if you got that far in, it didn't let you do anything because you weren't technically logged in.
So here's my complaint about the login. If we need to log in, why can't they only allow one browser per login?
Exactly.
Why can I log in on 30 browsers plus my phone plus my tablet plus whatever? If they have the control of knowing you need to log in, which everybody needs to, because everybody needs to be a D23 member, whether it's the paid one or the free one, in order to buy tickets, you need to log in. So there needs to be a system, because let's face it, there were not 60,000, 80,000 people trying to buy tickets.
Yes.
There were a lot of people with a lot of browsers open. And so that was my frustration. So there's that I'm like, this shouldn't have been that problem. And yeah, that was my biggest frustration with the tickets. That can't happen again.
Yeah, and we just had, what was it, Oogie Boogie Bash sometime around there, where the tickets sales, that was the first time in a long time that I can remember a Disney ticket sale online that went smoothly. Or it was just before that, because that was one of the things where they notified you guys when you could get back into the queue or go online. And that was something that I believe you even
Star
asked
Wars.
about.
It was Star Wars Disneyland After Dark. Yeah.
Where it was super easy for everybody that I talked to. And then this was super frustrating.
So from what I understand, D23 doesn't talk to Disneyland Resort for ticketing stuff, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
So that was very frustrating. It was, as we predicted, a lot of the stuff before convention was frustrating. Ticket buying was very frustrating. Hopefully they'll figure out a better system. As I said, I think the login, one browser per login, will fix that.
Yeah.
And I think, here's what I'll say, and this will never really happen, but as we discussed on the previous episode, the Honda Center seats were all different prices depending on where you chose to sit, yada, yada, yada. Okay. We now know this is a convention that sells out 100%. It will sell out. It sold out in 3 days. It could take 3 weeks next time. It doesn't matter. It's going to sell out. Since we know that, I want everything as randomized as possible, just for the sake of fairness. And what I mean by that is, you know how when it comes to selecting the panels, we had a week. So, of course, there's many panels you can attend, and some of them you'll get reservations for. We'll get into that a little bit more, but the process for submitting for those reservations is you put in what you want, and they say, great, we're going to randomize what you get. You have a week to do that. So that means not everybody is hopping on the internet on the same website at the same time trying to get something, and therefore it's not utter chaos. Knowing that the event sells out, I say, give us a week to submit and say, we want to buy tickets. Let everybody submit and let it randomize. And I get it. Some people aren't going to get tickets. That's very upsetting. But it's no different than now where some people aren't getting tickets. And it's not like, oh, you're being rewarded. Like, I get it. Like, people who show up or wait longer or something, like, deserve it more.
Yeah, you're not wasting a full day or more.
But that's the thing. It's not like people who are first in line are getting... It's people who has a faster internet connection, or, there's so many different things that it's just not a fair system. So, but if you know you're going to sell out, I feel like you can randomize more. I would love to see, this will never happen, but I would love to see the Honda Center be all one price and have your seats randomized.
Yeah,
you could be paying a lot of money for nosebleeds, or a median price, I should say, because right now, what was floor seats? The cheapest was $999. If
yes, yeah, that because that was the starting at $999, and we all came and went, "What's the max?"
Yeah,
and when we found that out, we're like, "No."
Yeah, so I feel like randomizing as much as possible, knowing you're going to sell out, is a good idea. It's the fairest way of doing it. It can absolutely suck if you don't get it. But at the same time, it's a lot of tag teaming. I feel bad for anybody going to this event solo and not having friends who were there, which, by the way, I did year one. Year one, I was there completely solo, really knew nobody, did my thing. This was a lot of bartering and planning with friends. And that kind of leads us into the whole reservations for panels, which, like in the past, we could we could submit for a week, and then it was randomized and sent to us. It sounded like people got either 0, 1, or 2 panels was pretty much the norm.
Yeah, I didn't hear anybody that got more than 2, but I was hearing people that for some reason they were receiving some random thing they didn't put in for.
I didn't hear about that.
I heard people that got big city greens, which is one of those things that I think we'll probably hit on this. The audiences of what they wanted to see and what they didn't want to see kind of shone through in some of these cases. But I got 2. I received the big Disney Channel one, but both of them, it was the Disney Channel and the Phineas and Ferb. And I selected the 7 because, again, we all have friends that can't get these, so we work things out. I got the 7 for Phineas and Ferb.
So what you're referring to is the +7.
Yes.
So yourself plus 7 guests.
Which I had asked people in D23, I'm like, is that going to cause some type, like, if you select the 7, does that mean you're not going to get it because somebody with the 1? No, that was the completely random. Didn't matter if you were 7 or 1.
Oh, really? Okay, so I didn't realize that. And I told people and friends, I was like, don't choose 7. I chose like 4 or 5.
Yeah, and that's why I went in and asked people. I was like, is this something? They're like, no, it is that random, which I definitely saw. But back to the selection. I received the 2. The first day, or the Phineas and Ferb, I got 7. The Disney Channel, I got 1. I don't vividly remember not selecting 7 because I feel like that was something I would have done. But when I got the RS reservations, it was 7 and 1. And again, a lot of people, and I had friends that were super frustrated, which made me laugh, and somebody that's been to the other expos, they were upset because there were panels that they wanted to do, that there were other things going on, like the Honda Center. I was like, you obviously don't understand conventions where it is. That's the draw. That's what separates the people. It's you want to do this one, you want to do that one. And doing the reservation system, I was looking at that. People had the giant charts and everything, and I just kind of went, timing. But I also didn't get a Pixar ball or a pennant.
Yeah, so the panels, I ended up swapping with friends, doing as we do. It takes so much planning, and it really does. So, and that was done pretty close to the event date. So that was, the ticketing thing was kind of out of mind by the time the event rolled around.
Yeah, we've accepted what we have and we're going.
The problem with the reservations was it was like the week before, less than a week before, that we got what we got. I will say, though, all of them had standby lines. I was very successful with standby lines all weekend.
So this is one of those times where my mind was blown. Because I had media for certain panels, but I was also rushing panels. I want to say that they mentioned this at the media or the press thing we went to, that it's 25% is the reservations and 75% is standby. I went to a panel. I was the first person in because it was the first panel of the day on Friday. Had my wristband, walked in, sat down, completely empty. I was like, oh, this isn't good. And then you see people come in, and they literally filled up the first quarter of the front of the theater. I was like, oh, that's it? And then the standby came in, and it filled up the rest of the room. And that was they aren't kidding, it's 25, 75%. And again, our view is different depending on where we are in the line. So being the first person in there, I got to watch the process and go, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, it was interesting because I will say this is the least tired convention I've ever been because of the knowing everything in advance. That knowing whether or not you were getting into the big panels or not. And listen, we both went to all three, I believe, of the big panels at the Honda Center. We knew that in advance. So we can't really speak for someone who didn't get to go and wanted to go. But I will say it was really nice knowing I don't have to wake up at 4 a.m. and go sleep in a basement with the hopes of maybe getting in.
But you did have to wake up at 4 a.m. still.
Okay, thank God I'm not a shopper. Why on earth? Please go ahead.
So to get into the Mickey's of Glendale Pin Store, the Walt Disney Company Store, the Walt Disney Company Pin Store, the Marketplace, and I want to say there may have been one other one.
All the shopping, essentially.
Yeah, it was all the Disney ones. The third parties that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
You had to get a reservation, and it was virtual queue. I have grown so accustomed to virtual queue. Rise of the Resistance was one of those, like, I would be there every morning to do that.
It was even in the Disneyland app, right?
Yes. Yeah, you had to, you went into the D23 app, and then you transferred over to the Disneyland app, and you selected which one you wanted, you selected your party, and that would open up, half hour, whatever before. But a half hour, whatever before was 3:30 in the morning. 4 o'clock.
That's insane.
It was. And I'm hitting refresh. And I got both days that I did it, I was able to get a reservation. Sure, the first day, the reservation, I think it was group 36. And that didn't get called until 2 o'clock. Wow. And that was for Mickey's of Glendale.
And how long was it good for? Because what if you're in a panel?
It was good for an hour.
Okay.
So it's much like the virtual queue in the parks. You have that return time. I didn't try to go back, and I'm sure that they would. Well, I don't know if it timed out, but I know people were having problems with panels, so they're holding it. But it was, your time's called, you press the button, QR code pops up, you go over, they scan it, put you in the queue. Mickey's of Glendale, the wait, as soon as you got in there, I think, judging by my friend who did it when I had to go to a panel, it was about 2.5 hours. That's the norm for that because everybody wants the pins and that kind of stuff. So I understand, as somebody who used to collect pins, how that can be a bit much. My second day, woke up 4 o'clock. was group number 6. So I'm going to add in part of this. The basement is no longer the basement where you wait in the queue. Hall D, which was formerly Hall D23, that's the entry queue. They did some weird stuff with the doors. They had 3 different doors and 3 different lines. I walked in. The first line was probably half full. I walked to the back. There was 1 line other than a small area. Nobody communicated to anybody. It's going to be the same thing. It was fine. But they also had queues set up for the Mickey's of Glendale, for the company store. So if you came down and you were one of the first Mickey's, or the company pin store was 1 through 5. I was number 6. Mm-hmm. So I walk 1 through 5. Well, I'm number 6. They're going to call, you have to go wait in the line. Fine, I understand. But by the time I made it to the shop, they were calling like number 8. Mm-hmm. So what was these people that they pulled them in early, the 1 through 5, and let them shop. And then as they were like kind of released right as everything was opening. That's great. 2 hours and I was number 6 because they had called however many numbers before, so it filled up.
Yeah.
The one complaint that I've had, and I know this will probably be a topic later, was there was no consistency on the door times. It was 9 o'clock, the floor opens. First day was like 9:08. Second day was 9:11. Yeah.
So what I understand and from what I was told is the shopping really kind of messed up when the floor doors opened. So the convention floor doors were supposed to open at 9 a.m., but they really wanted to make sure that the first shopping groups got to where they needed to be safely. From what I understand, Lorcana, Ravensburger really caused some problems, like potentially dangerous problems.
And that was the Loungefly Lorcana perfect storm in that area.
Okay.
Yes.
So they wanted to make sure people were getting places safely and where they were supposed to be. But because of that, I would say up to a half hour. There were times where the convention floor doors for guests who weren't shopping weren't opening till 9:30. Mm-hmm. And so we were waiting in these long lines outside. I will say security went very smoothly. Going through security was fast. I honestly was like, great, we're going to get right in. It's almost 9 o'clock. We're going to walk right in. And it's like, no, we're holding because shopping needs to get to their spots. And that's not okay. So I honestly think if I look at this as a big picture, the biggest problem, if we're talking about convention weekends, not ticketing prior and all that stuff, was shopping stuff, which I don't spend much time doing. It was a lot of hearsay and knowing how it affected me otherwise.
Yeah, and I'm not a shopper, but I did that for friends, and I would see this is what's happening. I mean, yes, the first day, Ravensburg, Lorcana, because they were giving away a unique card and they had a set, everybody rushed right there. They had security blocking that walkway because there were almost fights between the space for that and Loungefly. So I'm walking, get through it, then I turn around to come back, and there's a wall of security guards going, you have to go around. And I've been to enough conventions where I know somebody tells me to go around, it's just best to go around, where there were people like, no, I want to go to this booth. And they, again, it's, if somebody's telling you to do something that's an official person, just do it. It makes it easier. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so interesting because there's so many things to know. There's a lot of research that goes into this, and there's a lot of inconsistency because a lot of people are there just working the weekend. They don't really know what's going on. So one of the things I had issue with was not knowing what time cutoffs were for people with reservations for panels, what time they'd start loading in standby, because that affects your return time and stuff like that. And there were times where it was 15 minutes before the panel started, they'd start loading in the reservation people. And then other times it was 45 minutes and therefore you missed your window. Stuff like that was weird. Also with the panels, we didn't find out what the panels were till a couple weeks before the convention.
Yeah, it was very late.
And that's weird in the sense that you can't plan anything, right? It was sold out, so whatever, but imagine if there's a specific panel you want to see and you only are going Saturday and it's on Sunday. I don't know, there's so much going on. I really do sympathize. There's a ton going on.
Well, I'm used to San Diego Comic-Con that releases the panels a month in advance. Mm-hmm. And that happened the month in advance for D23 would have been San Diego Comic-Con time. So we were kind of waiting, and then we're waiting. And then the next day, and we're like, okay, well, maybe tomorrow, and then when they did it was smooth. They had the plan. I know from being in a panel, there was a last minute panel change for the big arena because of Richard Sherman's passing. Mm-hmm. It was frustrating, but it wasn't the worst that I've experienced.
Totally. Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. Let's talk about what were some of your kind of favorite standout things. We're not talking about the news necessarily on this episode. I'll get to that next week with Kyle during the House of Mouse headlines. This is more just kind of about big picture of the event and maybe some favorite things that aren't necessarily news.
Yeah, I enjoyed the floor. I've been to the previous 7 expos. With the exception of the first, I always felt the floor was too crowded. There was always lines. It was too cramped. And that was partially Hall D23, but I also felt that there wasn't enough to do. Up until today, you could walk into the Imagineering and see everything. The Star Wars booth never had a bad line that I saw. I never got a chance to do that because there was always a line. But everything seemed smooth. You could walk. There was no cramping of just trying to get through to people. So that was one of the things that yesterday, especially, middle of the day, I walked out to the lobby. There's nobody out there. It's not crazy inside the floor. Yes, there were certain panels, certain booths and certain experiences that had a line, but it was never, to me, it never seemed like it was something that was unachievable.
And certain things that typically do have long lines didn't have lines at all. You mentioned the Imagineering Pavilion, which they did do something that I thought was a terrible choice, and that is 2 of the rooms were blocked off until Sunday because they waited to announce some things on Saturday. They wanted to reveal that news before revealing these rooms. I get the thought behind it, but I think that's really crappy for anybody that went just Friday or Saturday. Yeah. And that's what caused the line there on the final day. But another thing that typically you have to wait for is the Walt Disney Archives exhibit on the show floor, and that was not the case. As we previously discussed, it was a big picture car exhibit, a lot of Disney vehicles and cars. On the show floor, no queue, just took up a bunch of space and you wandered around it. I am not a car guy, so perhaps I'm not the best judge of this, but I can easily say it was my least favorite Walt Disney Archives exhibit.
So I tend to agree with that. There were parts of the cars some of the cars that I really was excited to see, but I did just kind of walk around going, this is cool. But it wasn't the Archives exhibit. It wasn't it wasn't polished. Need to go see it. It was signs with cars. They had some cool backdrops. And really, the car that I was looking forward to was the Mustang from the Ford's Magic Skyway. That they had it was on a turntable, looked just like it was coming out of the dealership. So I stood there for a few minutes, but it was kind of I don't want to say I was annoyed by walking around, but as I kind of got towards the Corella cars, there were 3 of them. It's I'm just taking a picture of the 3. I don't need the individual pictures, where if you look at my photos from past expos, it's been, you zoom in, you get that one photo, you zoom in on the details, but it was cool. There was some fun stuff, but yeah, I think a lot of people actually missed it because it wasn't called out as something there was no line. It was a walk around exhibit, which was great. As you said, it was great to walk around, but there was just no drive. Pun intended.
You said drive, I said polish.
Yeah.
All these car puns.
Yes.
Yeah, it just didn't feel like a typical museum archives exhibit. And a lot of the vehicles, I gotta say, there were some cool Muppet vehicles. And not taking anything away from theme park history and stuff like that, but you look at it and you're a car from the original Muppet movie, and then you read it and it's no, it's from a theme park. Yes. And I'm so we've seen these cars many times.
Beauregard's Taxi from Disney's Hollywood Studios. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt lackluster.
And it was also, there were, for the first time, they brought in the Fox cars. They had Ford versus Ferrari and a couple of the other ones. And I consider myself a movie person. I looked at it and went, I I don't know that movie, and I don't know what this vehicle is, so...
Yeah, so not I will say, okay, so just to give Archive some credit, perhaps not the best show floor exhibit, but my favorite, I spent more time in that, the Walt Disney Archive stage than any other panel room. Well, if you don't count the Honda Center. They put on some fantastic presentations, including my favorite one of the weekend was the one about the 1964-65 New York World's Fair. That was phenomenal.
That was the one panel, and this was going back to the media event when they said we're doing a World's Fair panel because of the 60th anniversary. That was I'm going to fight to get into this no matter what. And again, thanks to friends of friends who had a spot, I was in there, like, very close, amazing. Yeah, I mean, that panel was a niche panel, but it also filled up.
Filled the room. I barely got in, to be honest. I was doing standby, and I gave myself like a half hour, because I saw that room wasn't, in high demand the previous day, and I was like, a half hour should be fine. I get there. I was like, oh crap, I might not get in. And once I got in and it started, I was like, thank God I got into this. I think it was my favorite panel of the weekend. And
we also didn't know that Jon Favreau, Kevin Feige, and Giacone was going to be in there, and that was a giant surprise, and they added so much to the story because they talked about Iron Man 2 and the music and how they brought in Richard Sherman, which was again touched upon later on. That was definitely a panel that if I wasn't there and I read about it, I would be very sad.
Who did you see the most? Because I saw Pete Docter in about 1 billion panels, and I saw Kevin Feige in a bunch.
Kevin Feige was, he was in all of them.
He was in a lot, and Pete Docter kept popping up for me, which was, fun. It was a lot of great panels. One thing I want to thank them for, this is a small thing. Well, it's not really that small. It's very costly. But I don't know. I haven't gone to any other convention where the entire show floor is carpeted. And I got to tell you, after walking that much for 3 days, it makes a world of difference, and it just makes it look so much better.
Yeah. San Diego Comic-Con prior to the pandemic used to carpet their entire floor. And I can remember coming out of that being one of the biggest complaints about the entire con. And when I walked in, not only was it carpeted, but it was nice carpeted. Like, there was padding underneath, and it wasn't even like, oh, you're walking the walkway, it's whatever, and then you step into one of the booths, and it was really nice. From the time I got through that door, cutting all the way across the floor, over to the Emporium area, like, it was just nice carpet. Like, if I had to sleep on that carpet like I have in the past, would have been great.
That's so funny. Are you a charter member by any chance?
I am a charter member.
Did you go to the charter member lounge?
So I was one of the first people in the charter member lounge. Okay. I don't know how it happened. I walked up. to the charter member lounge, showed my card, very proud of it, walked in, walked up to the gift booth, which sadly, because I had a media badge, it wasn't connected to my email, but they actually had a list of all the charter members, which I thought was, wow, that'd be like a book. Here you go. And they gave a nice button, and then they gave one of the variant figures. It's the blue Sorcerer Mickey. And then I walked over to the photo wall, and I almost cried.
Yeah. They have all of our names up on the wall. So it was like a basic step and repeat sort of thing. And you look and it says, thank you for 15 years of D23. And it listed all of the charter member names, which, I found my name. And but as I looked, I was like, are there that few of us?
So I think in your case, there could have been multiple people with your name.
Well, there was a Jeff, Jeffrey, and there were like several Jeffs. But yes, there could be multiple people with the name Jeff, but still not a long list.
No, I didn't look at how small, how many were on it, but it wasn't a big wall. And that's one of those things that really shocked me, because I'm like just scrolling down. I'm like, here's my name. It says Jeremiah on this wall. And I was like, the one guy in there is just staring at me as I'm taking pictures. And I wanted to go back so badly with somebody to video me, like, widescreen, and then pointing to my name and then just backing off. And it was, in the past, the lounges have always been nice, but it's been just a place to go and sit and cool off. this was that extra effort that really made me feel like this is the ultimate Disney fan club and I am part of it.
What's so funny is I went back out to where the check-in was and I go, is that all of our names? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, that's all of us? That's all that there are? So basically, charter member means you became a member of D23 in year one and have renewed every year for 15 years now. And they said, yeah, a lot of people like just forget to renew or don't have automatic renewal. And if they drop off and rejoin, they don't become a charter member again. So and apparently that's happened a lot.
That's not 100% true.
Oh, interesting.
Mine dropped off when I moved from California to Florida because of life. If you renewed, okay, it may have changed in the past 11 years, but I talked directly to somebody that said, no, if you renew within 6 months of your expiration date, you're still keeping everything.
Interesting.
So that, I'm sure by now, anybody that was the charter member, probably you and I are having this conversation and 4 other people go, oh, I missed that. I didn't go up there. But yeah, it's one of those, it's that special extra effort.
So here's what I want to know, though, and this is very pretentious of me, but if there are that few charter members, year one, I'm day one. I want to know how many of me there are. Like, I'm really curious how many day one charter members there are. Maybe we deserve a plaque or something.
I didn't join until Christmas of that year.
Okay.
Because it was one of those, I was a cast member at the time, and it was, was it 75 to start, I think?
Something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't the 99. And, as a cast member, especially 15 years ago, you're not making enough to like, hey, I got this. But now, I every year for 15 years now, I'm like, if I would have done that day one, I would have had that really nice pin.
With Jiminy Cricket?
Yes.
I have the pin. But I honestly, I feel like I should get first dibs at tickets to Detroit. I think all charter members should. If there's that few of us, I actually genuinely feel like I'm writing an email. Yeah. I think that should be considered.
That is a good
And point. I know I'm completely contradicting myself, Mr. Everything should be randomized. But I'm sorry. A 15-year commitment to paying that, and yeah, I think we deserve that. I was shocked by how few of us there are. It was maybe 150 names on that thing. Maybe.
Yeah, because it was big print, but the wall was more than I was paying attention to. But no, that's something I think we should follow up. And, if I talk to somebody, I'll ask and report back to you.
Yeah. Something I missed on the show floor this year that didn't return, but they kind of supplemented in other ways was I used to love the kind of cavalcade that would happen randomly where they'd have the giant balloons and a marching band and a golf cart with guests and stuff like that. So I spoke with someone about that, and apparently it was just a cluster as far as crowds. So I missed it very much, but they did have kind of random musical acts. There was somebody playing a grand piano on the show floor every once in a while, and there was musical groups, like a brass band group.
Yeah, I think there were 2 bands that were just out there.
Everywhere. On the show floor, in the lobbies.
Outside. They had them out by the fountain, and that really brought an extra,
great energy.
Yeah, kinetic life to the area, and I kind of miss, maybe it was 2 expos ago where they had a stage towards the front that had a DJ, where this time the DJ was in the far back corner, and I never made it back there except when I was coming in to see him, and usually he'd be like all by himself going, have fun guys. So I don't know if at any point there was people back there enjoying him.
With the DJ, you're saying? There was definitely a lot of activity back there. I saw a lot of kind of like Beauty and the Beast musical performance. There was stuff going on back there. So that's for sure. One place where there was nothing going on every time I walked by, and they had a large footprint. I learned this week that D23 fans are not ESPN fans.
Or Honda fans, because that was the one that I kept seeing of nobody was walking in.
Well, that makes sense. Honda just feels like a sponsor, whereas ESPN is part of the Disney family. They had a huge footprint, and I don't think I ever saw anybody in there.
I could not, for the life of me, tell you where that booth was, because there were things that I would see, but I know that I missed pretty big chunks of things the Disney nerd fans come out at certain times. And I think, yes, there are a small portion of us Disney nerds that are sports fans, but it's definitely not enough for...
Not for that big footprint, no. I want to go back to a second. We talked a little bit earlier about how security was easy, and it was. But I do have a gripe, and this is not a D23 gripe. I would bet money on the fact that this isn't a D23 rule. This is a convention center rule, as it is for a lot of convention centers. But they took everybody's food away. Any snacks that you had, anything but water, they would take away. And I have a problem with that because I understand these convention centers make money that way. I understand it's the movie theater mentality, right? Like, we're not making a ton off of movie tickets. We make it off of the concession sales. Well, argument number one, convention centers get paid a lot of money to be rented.
Rented out that much,
They get paid a lot of money. So, and the other argument is, this is a scenario where we're going to be someplace all day long. It is not cool to take people's snacks away. Nobody's trying to bring a foot long from Subway. Or even if they did, who cares? I don't care. I had an issue with that. The workaround was, if you were media, you could say I'm media and they'll let you do it. The other thing is you just say it's for medical reasons. You need it. And they didn't bat an eye and you could take it in.
Yeah, one of my friends had medication and they were stopped and they kind of looked in the bag and they're like, okay, just go. I see there's 7 pill bottles in here. Just go. But
I had a friend who did not have pill bottles, and he simply said, "Oh, I have low blood sugar," and they're like, "Okay, go ahead." So it's legally they can't tell you not to bring.
Yeah, it's like going to the movie theater.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's their right to refuse it. And I know D23 can't do anything about this. It's just part of the contract that you sign. But God, it frustrated me. And frankly, it makes me want to go to Congress and be like, this is any business where you're going to be there all day long. It's like the 2-drink minimum rule for me when you go out. I'm like, most people are drinking 2 drinks at least. Like, you don't have to force that upon anyone, even if there's the folks who don't do it. It's a very small percentage, and I'm sure somebody else is making up for it because people are going way over 2.
Some security was no food, no water. Like,
I heard that day one, and I was like, that's illegal.
Yeah.
That is flat out illegal. They can say, if you have a water bottle, empty it, sort of thing. Like, if it's been pre-opened for safety reasons. If you brought a water bottle that wasn't open yet, and they cannot legally take that away from you. So just keep that in mind, anybody listening. If you're ever in a scenario like that, have a water bottle that is sealed, not a refillable water bottle, not one that's plastic, has been opened and refilled, sealed. They can't take it away. So, yeah, that was crazy and something I just wanted to mention because that was definitely frustrating, but once again, out of the hands of D23. This is a funny event because Josh D'Amaro and Bob Iger are rock stars. Whenever they're on the show floor, I saw them a bunch, and always crowds around them, always security with them, always gracious to the guests, but at some point it's like, we gotta go sort of thing. But it always cracks me up with Disney. No other studio has to deal with this. It is such a weird job to have these roles at the Walt Disney Company or any other entertainment company, unless it's a founder, right? Like Steve Jobs and Apple, he was a founder. Walt Disney and the Walt Disney Company, it makes sense. It's so weird to me that people lose their minds when they see Bob Iger and Josh D'Amaro out there walking around.
Well, I'm sure that you, being the Disney fan, also have experienced this in the past. We run into, like, Bob Gurr randomly at things. He was scooting around the floor, and he would have people chasing him down, not even to sign his Funko Pop, but because it's Bob Gurr. And it's the same with Josh and Bob. Like you said, they are the rock stars. They are the face of the company. You could put photos of any other company's heads in front of me. Not a chance I could identify them. And that's not just a Disney fan. I think that's more just media, and the faces come out at times.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. It's funny to see. And it just makes me grin.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just makes me laugh. I love how much the convention center is personalized for D23, the Ultimate Disney Fan Event, because, convention centers are very much blank canvases. They all look like hotel lobbies because they need to be used for many different purposes. One week it's a horror convention, the next week it's a Disney one, the next one it's a dentist convention, So I love it when they're personalized. Disney does a great job. Giant banners everywhere. I noticed a detail between one of the escalators, like the gap between the up and the down. Instead of just like the normal metal that they had there, they had like a vinyl print of the blue Disney and the pixie dust just running up the center. And I'm like that's an expense.
I completely missed that. But did you happen to see the stump table outside?
Yes, I did see this.
That had the Ariel dress on it. Like that, I walked up and some fan had to do this. No, that was the day before. It was just a tree stump, and then they put an Ariel wrap around it, so it looks like it was an Ariel dress. That is, again, those little details that keep us coming back.
Yeah, I really like the way they personalized the convention center itself. I don't know. Convention centers are such interesting spaces to me. I love the fragility of them. I love the amount of hours, effort, work that goes into creating them for 3 days of entertaining people. It's like there's something, I mean, it's truly magical to me. It makes me emotional to think about it. Like when I was leaving the convention center today for the final moments, I'm just like, it's going to be 2 years, No,
I felt the exact, because in the past, I've always been the person that sits on the floor until you hear that thank you and good night. And you and I talked about this briefly about being at the Honda Center and missing out on that. So
so we didn't get to experience that this year because show floor closed at 7 p.m., but we had to be at the Honda Center at 5 p.m. for Legends. So this is a complaint. I think that all convention fans should be able, I guess we all are able, but the overlap shouldn't be there on that final night, I don't think, of the Honda Center. I would have really liked to have been there for the last moments. I'm happy I went to the Honda for the Legends ceremony, but it felt weird leaving there in the afternoon to head to the Honda Center. And they didn't even say at the end of Legends, there was no thanks for coming to D23. It was a good night. Thanks for coming to the Legends ceremony. But
it was Ryan Seacrest.
Yeah. And so I do feel like I missed something there. And that kind of made me sad. And, as we speak right now, it is now almost 3 hours since that show floor closed. And we would go in there and it would be a complete disaster mess right now.
Yeah, no. And that was always my favorite thing was to go and stay there. And, usually, especially here, there's always the final panel that was always something big and that would draw the people out. So I would just walk the floor and enjoy that moment of, I'm not going to experience this for 2 years. This makes me sad. One of my friends said, this is the Disney Super Bowl. And it is. And it's like, coming out of this, we're going to have that con downtime.
Oh, it's like a con depression. Yeah. It's a real thing.
Yeah, especially with this, because no place else, and this will be my praise moment, you and I got to hang out. I see people that I haven't seen in 2 years.
Yeah.
And it is the family reunion. Like, I can remember when Walt Disney World did their family reunion thing. If D23 needs a thing for their 9th next time, do a family reunion. Do the photos of all of us who have been to every single one and the friends that we've made. And it is so sad. I'm going to start to cry. That's how tired I am and how sad I am.
This podcast started because of working with somebody who I met at D23. My original co-host, Patrick, we met in line at D23. And that is how this podcast began. And now, it's changed a lot through the years. But I'm now in my 10th year, my 11th season. Like, it's insane. So, yeah, it is very, very special. And I love it. And, like every convention, so many wonderful memories, so many frustrating moments. But the minute it ends, you're like, I'd do it all over again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk about the World of Disney product experience, because this was a cool little shopping offering that was a bit unexpected. There's a ton of... I want to say half of the convention is shopping. If you think about the individual booths on the show floor and then the official Disney booths, and now this whole other shopping experience room that they made that had, a publishing section and all these different sections that were official Walt Disney stuff, but just beautifully done. Even a little bit of a museum, honestly, more archives feel than the actual archives exhibit, where they showcased Disney merchandise through the years. Just really well done. As I said, I'm not much of a shopper, so like I'm not there I was there to see what they did, and they did a beautiful job.
Yeah, I made it up with somebody that got one of the 1 o'clock return times. Like the marketplace up there opened up, and I went up there, walked through the marketplace. They had some great merchandise, some amazing, like, the only thing I really bought was a 25th anniversary pin that looks like the 2000 pin that they did for the original pin trading, because it's the 25th anniversary coming up. So that was something special to me. But then I walked over. I didn't get a chance to do the Star Wars Darkade, but I walked into the publishing, and they had the Pixar putt, and they had a DJ up there. That was almost could be a convention floor on its own, and it was very nice to see them really embracing that, not just the shopping.
Yeah. I gotta say, tight with the panel times.
Yes.
Start times, end times were tight, which is so appreciated, because not only for the people waiting to get in after you, but just, I know for me, the way I book my schedule, it's like, oh, I gotta get to this next thing. I have so much time to do it. The start times and the end times were either right on time or maybe 5-minute delay, maybe. But that happened to me, I think, once.
Yeah, I was in the 60 years of Walt Disney Ambassador.
Yeah,
and that was, you could see it. It's great at the same time. It was frustrating. Like, it was so set up. Like, okay, you're gonna do this is boom, 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 boom. I'm looking at my watch, and some people were running a little long. And then it got to the end where they're doing this ambassador challenge. And you could see David, who is the host, going, okay, and now we're going to your favorite benches. And he looks up, and on the screen, it's like favorite attraction. So they were in the back editing, like, no, we're cutting this because we're going to run long. And it ended, I think, 2 minutes later than it was supposed
I left
to.
right at that moment when they said the bench thing. I was like, I got to get to the Honda Center. But yeah, I mean, it was run like a tight ship, and that was great. My argument would be was sometimes they weren't loading the rooms early enough, and therefore they would start on time and continue loading the room. And I was like, come on, why did you wait so long? But listen, sound checks, whatever, surprises, they get to rehearse, it happens. But it was great. I do want to mention on the show floor, 2 booths that were fantastic to me. Disney Channel had a booth where you could do the wand and the whole creating the Mickey ears and, hey, you're watching Disney Channel sort of thing. So much fun.
So I have a little bit of history for that. Do you remember that last expo?
I remember it existing. I didn't do it. I did it this time. Did a terrible job, but made a great video.
It was in the 100 Years archive, which was, again, a smaller...
Yes, I do remember that, yes.
An intern suggested that, who grew up watching Disney Channel, and they said, oh, sure, we'll do it. That was the number one thing on the show floor. Just like every time you walked by it here, there was a line, and it was so cool to see that.
And the finished video came out great. Like, I'm so happy with it. So that was a standout for me. Disney on Broadway had a beautiful footprint with, costumes and props and stuff on delay, but not just... Did I say delay or display?
I think you said delay.
I meant to say display. It's late. I'm tired.
Yeah.
3 days of convention. But we're on display. But one of the coolest things was they would hand you stuff to take photos with. So, like, I walked up and baby Simba that you see on stage on Broadway in The Lion King, they just handed the puppet to me. I was like, yeah, do your photo, do your thing. And like, they're like, yeah, this is the one that's been used on stage many times. And I was like, holy crap. And I thought that was like the one select item that they're like, we'll let people play with this. Nope. Later on, I'm walking by, I see somebody with Jafar's staff, and they're taking photos with Jafar's staff from Aladdin, the Broadway musical. I'm like, how cool. So, and I thought they were going to say no to me, but it's like, can I rub the lamp? Can I take a picture of the lamp? They're like, yeah, hold on a second. They went up on stage, grabbed the lamp for me, handed it to me, and I got a photo with the magic lamp from a Broadway production. I was like, this is the cool, what an opportunity. It was really cool.
Again, FOMO, because I cut through that booth like 5 times, and I saw people with, I want to say somebody was holding one of the Lion King masks.
Okay.
And I kind of just ran through, but now I'm like, okay, I need a time machine and go back and do this. But yeah, they really, I think, listen to us. And I talked to Michael Vargo at one point, and they're like, we listened to everything that came out of the last one. And that was also evident in some other panels. But they do their best. They know that it's frustrating, but they want to give us the bang for our buck.
And I will say, we said this before with the preview, the media event, the announcement stuff. They listened. They were going to make mistakes. There were mistakes, but I gotta say, like, it was pretty solid for the most part. You know, I had some problems with the Honda panel stuff. Well, sound was an issue. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it depended on where you were sitting or not, but the sound quality, the sound mixing was not good in the nosebleeds, at least.
The Parks panel, especially at times where they were doing songs, and I couldn't
understand it.
Yeah, I was reading the teleprompter of the arena, and I couldn't pick things up, and I was like, I don't know. You know, if you weren't focused on everything, you missed it. But yeah, that's, you know, you're in an arena that's set up for a concert, so when they're having somebody talk, it doesn't reverberate the same.
I had such mixed feelings. I mean, so night one was the movie stuff. That was fine. It was the presentation of the Parks panel that it was a ton of money they dumped into that. This was like a freaking concert. And I was like, I'm here for theme park news. Like, I loved some of the surprises when they tied into what they were talking about. But there was some random stuff happening. There was All for One performing. I was like, well, are they coming to eat to the beat or something? No, they're just here singing. And there's just a lot of kind of unnecessary. And I'll put it to you this way. The way that the crowd reacted to the Villain Land finally being officially announced for Magic Kingdom, that was a huge moment. The crowd went wild. I want the crowd going wild for stuff like that. Yeah. Not because of random stars coming out. You know, I'm not saying they shouldn't exist. The production value that existed back when those panels were at the Anaheim Convention Center was enough for me. Mm-hmm. Like, I want more news. I appreciated the fact that they started things off saying, hey, this isn't blue sky stuff. Yes. This is active development. This stuff is happening. That was great. And like I said, Kyle and I will get into like all of the new news on next week's episode. But yeah, I don't know, that presentation, I got to be honest, I was disappointed.
See, I didn't have a problem with that because they kind of introduced as it's going to be a musical tour and it's going to take you around where we're going. And I enjoyed it. It was something that I felt fit perfectly in the Honda Center with the concert feel. You know, starting off with the Mad Tea Party doing a 30-minute set was something that
was called that was called not delaying. What's the word? Stalling.
Yeah,
that was called stalling.
That was like I was kind of just wondering. I will tell you, and this will be the only thing I'll talk about as far as that panel goes, the one moment where they're about to lead into the nighttime shows and the orchestra played the opening to Light Magic just made me lose it. I couldn't think of anything else for the rest of it. People are like, what's your favorite part? I'm like, Light Magic. They're like, when did that happen? I edited my video. I put that up. That's the only thing I'm putting up from that. I was like, it was such a small touch moment that made, you know, I talked to 5 other people that knew about it. Everybody else, like, we don't care. But they did.
There's some great throwback stuff. Yeah. A lot of Epcot throwback stuff. Yeah, it was great.
I do agree the Deadpool thing, as entertaining as that was, probably wasn't needed to be the entire song.
See, I was fine with that because it was like, at least this ties into the Disney parks, and I loved him poking fun at oh my gosh, when he started making fun of the broken Yeti and the dragon that caught on fire, I was like, I love this meta crap. And that didn't bother me. It was just like the random musical performance.
Well, All for One was definitely, like, I was recording a lot of stuff and they came out and I'm like, I don't need this.
At least half of the musical performances were random as hell. So, I don't know. That was that, but hey, it happened. We got some great news coming out of it. We'll get to it next week. But anything else? Oh, one thing we got to talk about is the fact that, like, no gifts.
So, I said that multiple times because usually we'll just walk out with, you know, even if
arms
it's a poster.
Full of crap.
Yeah. The only...
We got a deck of cards from David Blaine.
Which, that was pretty cool.
That trick was amazing, yes.
I know that the Wolverine panel today, or yesterday, gave out comics.
Okay.
But I also heard that, as with years past with the comics, they had a lot of problems with people trying to circle back to get more. But, yeah,
Far fewer gifts, giveaways than I've ever seen at D23.
I mean, even then, San Diego Comic-Con, you go to a panel, the World's Fair one was something that I would have thought, just something World's Fair-ish. I mean, but, yeah, that was definitely on the top of my head every time. I'd be like, is there anything?
Yeah, we should say that for the movie one, they gave us David Blaine created a deck of cards. He's a illusionist. He gave us a deck of cards that he created that are apparently specific to this event, which is cool. And we got light up bracelets that will do us no good because we can't control them outside of the convention center. And they did give us, I guess they're emailing us, Fandango tickets to go see Mufasa.
Yes, which
I thought was a smart way to do a giveaway with 12,000 people. Obviously, the distribution is a difficult thing. I get it. It was just I don't know if they were like, all this stuff ends up on eBay anyway, so maybe people just don't care or appreciate it. I don't know. But I was just kind of staggered by how few.
And it's barely. They've definitely trained us to walk out. We're Pavlov's fans. Like, okay, free gift. Yeah. But yeah, that was definitely one of those things that felt odd to me multiple times in different panels.
One thing I absolutely loved about the Parks panel was the Soarin' opening. They brought back Patrick Warburton. I'm going to assume they shot this at the same time that they shot that whole little social media thing.
So here's an Easter egg about
Caitlin Robrock?
Yes, and I was talking to Caitlin.
She just texted you because I have your phone. I have your phone in my hand, and
she's like, "Where are you?"
Yes.
Yes. She told me that they were filming it the same day as when they did the Disney Parks blog where they surprised the guests. And she's like, yeah, I went in, and it was like 4 a.m. when they were filming that.
Because I saw her in the social media video, yeah.
Yes, and that was that one, and that was hilarious. And they did a great job of setting themselves up. And again, with the Deadpool, I think they finally realized we don't have to take ourselves so seriously. Mm-hmm. If we make fun of it, we get that they're making fun of it, then we're all in the joke, not, oh, they're making fun of us. No, we can't have them do that. We're ignoring all of this.
Yeah. It was, and I love that they got the guy with the ear hats to take part in that. The original guy came back for that. It was great. It was a fun moment. Anything else you want to add about the Honda Center kind of experience? We talked about transpo to and from, much better than anybody anticipated. Bravo to them for that. Anything, I don't know.
No, I mean, the overall experience was, leaps and bounds above what we expected because we were very pessimistic.
We were very pessimistic. I will say, though, and I feared this would happen, there were a good amount of empty seats, and that breaks my heart because I know a lot of people would have loved to have been there that couldn't get in there, which means scalpers bought tickets, and they didn't, were selling them for way over asking price, and so there were a good amount of empty seats for every show I went to. Yeah. And certainly not a majority, but maybe 5%. But 5% of 12,000 is a lot of people that could have gotten in there.
Yeah. And that was, I was in the media section and I would look and I like, okay, I know that this was this section. But yeah, I would look around and go, there are empty seats. But there was also, I had that fear going today where my bus was running late. And I noticed yesterday, a half hour before the presentation, everything was empty. And then it was like the opening band. Well, I guess they came in to see Mad Tea Party anyway. But it was like a regular concert where they're like, oh, the opening band's going to play for an hour, then we can file in. But it went from nothing to everything in a few minutes.
Yeah, that happens a lot, I find. Anything with reserved seats, I find that people really kind of wait till the last minute to sit in their seats. But the food was overpriced there, of course, because it's a venue, but it was kind of a convenient place. Just like, let's just get there, eat, and be there and ready. So, Honda Center, if you had a choice, would you bring it back or would you keep everything at Anaheim Convention Center?
I would actually bring it back. I think I would definitely rearranged.
It was not walkable. I know that was one thing we kind of discussed. Is it walkable? It is definitely not walkable.
No, and with the Anaheim Resort Transit dropping us off at the train station, it was a walk over to there, and you would see, the herd of wildebeest going and have to stop at the light. And I felt like each day the security and the police doubled. And then today, leaving, you and I were in the car with somebody and just watching them try to funnel us out from parking lots. But I think they did a great job.
I agree.
And just like with the first expo, the next one was a step up. And, what will they do at the Honda Center next time? Hopefully I know that because of traffic and everything, they'll never do it, but push the last day back till they close the floor. And
I would like to see that happen. I think that there's a couple of reasons. Number one, as I previously mentioned, like the just load out. They need more time to load out. Also, a lot of these legends are older and don't want to be starting an award show at 8 p.m.
and getting done 3 hours.
And remember,
2 hours.
It used to be the first thing.
Yeah.
Legends used to be the first thing. It used to be an 11 a.m. panel. So, yeah, I get it. I really... And maybe that's just a personal decision I need to make. Maybe next time, if Legends was the last thing again, I'd just have to say, you know what? Maybe I don't do Legends and I stay at the convention center.
And that was a thought that I had was, I think if it wasn't for Joe Rohde, John Williams...
That's the thing. There's always one or two that you're like, oh, I should be there for that. And sadly, we should mention John Williams was not there as we feared might happen. He has missed months of engagements. So that's a concern. I hope he's getting better, whatever's going on. But yeah, I mean, some lovely... We should touch on Legends for a minute because this isn't really news. Kyle and I won't touch on this, but Joe Rohde, so happy for him. Mark Henn, so
Mark
happy
Henn
for him.
and the princesses.
All the princesses came out. Oh, the voices of the princesses. What a moment.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
crowd went wild.
It was watching them because they would say their line and have to stop because we were cheering so loud for them. And it was such a special moment. And then when Mark came out, he got a bigger applause than they did, which is one of those things I feared that with some of the legends, like, Martha's somebody that as a parks person I've known about, but the regular general going public didn't have much of an idea.
It's Disney nerds in that room, man.
It was. And
anybody associated with the parks, the crowd went wild for. And it was lovely to see. And... yeah, some really special moments there. And it's going to be on Disney Plus. They shot it, and you'll be able to see the Disney Legends. It was 3 hours for us. I'll be very curious to see how long it ends up being on Disney Plus. But, very nice ceremony. Even some great speeches from people I'm not particularly a fan of. Like Kelly Ripa, I can take her or leave her, but very nice speech. And there were
Angela Bassett, like, she stole it with her speech. And it's so amazing to listen to somebody so powerful speak. And she just walked up there and wowed us out. And then James Cameron was just kind of like thanks guys. He
had a whole speech on a teleprompter, but I'll tell you, he just went off the cuff. It was kind of funny watching the teleprompter try and figure out where some of these people were going, and you'd see it going back and forth. And I know you're not supposed to look at it, but I do, because that's the way my head works. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's just talk about, did you have a favorite moment of the weekend?
I really have to say, spending time with my friends, seeing everybody. Yes, everything there is amazing. I cannot pick the best moment, but I'm going to walk away with this going, I got to spend almost 3 days with my niece that I hardly ever get to spend time with. I got to see friends like you that I've spent 10 minutes with in person, and just walking the show floor and running into friends and making new friends. It was just so nice. And it's sad to think, like you said, like we both said, we have to wait 2 years for this again. But yes,
but that's what makes it so great.
Yes.
Anticipation is such a gift. Yeah. And listen, there will be many Disney memories and moments between now and then. And I don't think I answered the question about the Honda Center. I think the Honda Center worked out well. I think, and I don't think this will happen, but I really would like the pricing and the distribution to be really different. I would really like to see randomization happen. I really would, and I know I've said it many times now. it's going to sell out.
Yes.
And it's not an inexpensive venue to rent. I understand that. So it's kind of like, okay, well, if we have a median price, right? Like, maybe show floor can stay the stupid expensive price. But because if you remember, during that media presentation, they said more than half of the seats would be the lowest ticket price. I don't think that was true.
So I didn't look much, but I know that the 400s were all the cheap seats?
No.
They weren't? Okay.
No, because I think it was like back row of 400 was the 297.
Yeah, I know it was like certain sections, but yeah, I know the people down on the floor. And again, this is why it'll never happen. The floor, when it got to 2,000 plus, all those seats are sold.
They are. So I think, and once again, I go back to the whole, just knowing how much a venue like that costs to rent. It's insane. I think if we can keep the show floor, not the show floor, but the floor of the arena tickets at an insane price, do it. Those are people that just are going to do it. They have the money. They're going to do it. Take their money. For the rest of the things, even if it was just all of 400 was one price and all of the 200s was one price or whatever, and those sections were just randomized among them, something like that, I would prefer to see. I don't like the seat in front of me was $50 more. I've never liked that. I just don't like it.
Yeah, it's like going to a Broadway show.
It is.
Like,
and even in those situations, I'll often buy tickets to a show early on, far in advance, and I won't buy the most expensive, but I'll buy the seat right behind the most expensive, and the night I show up, I'll just look at the person in front of me like, you sucker paid $80 more, and I'm right behind you. But I don't know, when you get to a point of knowing you will sell out, which D23 is now at that point, I feel like let's try and just make this as fair as possible.
Yeah, you put in your sheet of you want this price, these tickets, you send it in, and then a week later you get we can give you this, we can't give you both. And they've done that for different things of, yes, I want everything, or no, I only want this. But yeah, that would be a good idea.
And by randomization, I do mean charter member preference.
Oh, yes, of course. Us 150 people. No, we're getting the front row. 10th anniversary.
Honestly, it's a huge part of the reason why I've never let go of my day one charter member. I was like, because I know that they give charter member benefits. So I'm like, they've got to be doing something for day one charter members one of these. I'm going to reach out. I just want to know how many of us there are.
I think last Expo, they had a day one and a charter separate.
Oh, really?
I believe.
Oh, I don't remember that.
I know the charter member lounge was there, but I want to say that there was like a day one. But again, yeah, we'll have to find that out.
Yeah, very interesting. So yeah, congratulations to everybody who worked on this. I know how much work goes into it. I know y'all want it to be the best it can be. I know there are things out of your control. And I know there are things that you can learn upon and fix upon next time. So, this will not be the last D23 convention. Whether or not it's called the Ultimate Disney Fan Event next time, we will find out in a couple years. But sincerely, congratulations to everybody involved. I hope anybody who went had a fantastic time. I hope anybody who didn't go got to enjoy it online. And Jeremiah, thank you so much for spending some time. I mean, we're exhausted.
Yes, and I can't tell you how much this was an outlet that I wanted. Like last night after the parks, I just needed to talk to somebody. I went over to hung out with my friends until like 12:30 because I'm like, I need to decompress. So this is a perfect way to do that. So thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning into this episode. Don't miss any future episodes by subscribing and following Dizney with a Z, coast to coast on your favorite podcast app, where episodes are available 24/7. Now, folks, if you missed D23 because you live over on the East Coast, I have another live event you won't want to miss. On Friday, September 20th, join me in Salem, Massachusetts for the I Put a Spell on You Masquerade, where you can step inside Salem's Old Town Hall, shooting location of Disney's Hocus Pocus, for your own Halloween costume dance party with lots of surprises. Details can be found at tinyurl.com/SalemParty2024, or simply click the link in this episode's description. This episode has been executive produced by Jeffrey Riccio. Gain rewards like Jeffrey, including access to never-before-heard episodes and livestream Ask Me Anythings, by visiting the Patreon link in this episode's description. Until next time, anything you need can be found in this episode's description, from additional information and links discussed in this episode found in the show notes, to the DCTC hotline where you can leave a voicemail and be heard on a future episode, contact info to reach me, access to the show's official website, some free gifts from me to you, and so much more. So be sure to check out this episode's description. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!